Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to get started in just a few minutes once everybody gets in the meeting and gets on the audio. So it looks like we've got a couple more people joining us. A nice big meeting today.
Carrie, are we ready to get started?
I think it looks like I don't see anyone that is still connecting. It looks like a couple may still be connecting. So let's, a couple more joining. This is exciting. This is a big meeting. Lots of people showing up. Good stuff. All right. So if you want to go ahead, Kim, and get started.
Okay. Hi, guys. It's Kim from your Wellness Committee. Welcome to the September Summit County Safety Council virtual meeting. Before we get to our main speaker today, we're going to introduce our sponsor, the Metro Parks, and we're going to talk about our Fall Wellness Challenge. So now I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie from our Summit Metro Parks.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for having me today. I'm going to try to share my screen real quickly here to talk about the Fall Hiking Spree. Okay, oops. All right, so hopefully my screen is sharing now. So we have our 57th annual Fall Hiking Spree is now underway in the Metro Parks. My name is Stephanie Walton. I'm the Chief of Marketing and Communications for the Metro Parks. So the spree is running, started September 1st and runs through November 30th. And for anyone who may be unfamiliar with the spree, you hike 8 of the designated trails. And then if you are a first-year hiker, you receive the hiking staff that you see here, as well as the shield for that year's hiking spree. So this year, it's the one with the trees on it that you see here. And then every year afterwards, veteran hikers will earn a new shield to add to their staff. So someday your staff will look like the one that we see here that is completely full of shields for many, many years of wonderful Fall Hiking Spree experiences. So this year's spree theme is Field to Forest, which is celebrating the fact that so many of our metro parks and trails used to be farms that have now been either donated to the metro parks or purchased by the metro parks over the years and have been returned to forests or a natural state. So all of the trails on this year's spree are located in parks that used to be a farm, either not so long ago, or some of them a very long time ago were farms. So that's the spree in a nutshell. So one thing that you'll need to complete your spree is a hiking spree form. So this form lists all of the trails that are available to choose from, and then you go through on the form and sign and date it when you hike the trails. So for those of you who are familiar with the spree, you're probably used to getting your form in a couple of very well-known and traditional locations that have been available for many, many years. One of those locations that you may be used to is Acme Fresh Market. Or also folks like to get their forms in the kiosk boxes at the park. So due to COVID, like so many things, there's been some adjustments made this year, and hiking spree forms are not available in either of those locations this year. So you cannot get a form at Acme, and you cannot get one in the kiosk boxes at the parks, just due to the fact that both of those situations create kind of a frequent high touch area that's just difficult, especially in the parks at the kiosk boxes, difficult for us to disinfect regularly. So they're not available there, but they're available in a number of other easily accessible locations. Probably the easiest for those of you who do have a computer and internet connection and a printer, they are available online for download. So that's probably the simplest. It's at hikingspree.summitmetroparks.org, and you can just download the form straight from the website. If you do need to pick one up in another method, they are available at our administrative offices, which are located at 975 Treaty Line Road in Akron. There's a drop box out in front of that building that's being disinfected regularly. They're also available on the back of this month's Green Islands magazine. That's our bi-monthly publication that many people receive mailed free to their home. So if you are a subscriber, you have that publication in your possession already. If not, they're also available in many library locations. And then we are also making the forms available at our Spree Rewards pickup sessions, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about here in just a minute. So this is a look at the Green Islands magazine that I just mentioned. You'll see here, that's the cover image for the month. And then on the back, that's where you'll see the form. So as I touched on, you can kind of see how the form works. You fill out your name. You can fill out one form for your entire family. Each family member, up to, I think, 6 people, can fit on one form. And then all of the trails are listed there on the back of the form, which you can't see here, all of the location information, the addresses, and you'll see the trail difficulty level and kind of what you can expect from each of those trails right here on the form. So this is what you will need to fill out. You'll hike 8 of these trails. There are 12 to choose from, plus 1 hiker's choice. So you can, for that hiker's choice for your 8th trail, you can hike any of the trails in the Metro Parks system if you would like to choose one that's not on the list. So I mentioned the Spree Rewards pickup session. So that's another thing that's a little bit different this year, just due to COVID. Our nature centers still remain closed due to safety precautions for the epidemic. So we have Spree Rewards pickup sessions at 2 locations. The one you see here on the left is the Nature Realm in Akron, and on the right is Liberty Park Nature Center up in Twinsburg. We have sessions throughout the fall. They are the times and dates for those kind of vary. We're trying to hit different like weekday times and weekend times and Saturdays and Sundays. So they really kind of vary throughout the fall. So the best place to get information on exactly when you can pick up your rewards would be by calling the number you see here or by visiting the website. All of those dates and times are listed there for you. Generally at the Nature Realm, they're Tuesdays and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., but we have some additional time slots and dates available as well. So that's where you will take your completed form and you'll receive either a hiking staff and a shield or just a shield if you are a veteran hiker. You can also at those pickup sessions purchase a Fall Hiking Spree t-shirt if you choose. And then I'm just going to wrap up with a couple of safety tips, which hopefully this group will be appreciative of. COVID-19 safety obviously is top of mind. Parks have been very popular during COVID-19. We've seen extremely high visitation numbers, which is wonderful. We're so grateful that we were able to stay open, and that our community, we're so grateful actually to our community as well for just assisting us with keeping the parks safe and clean and open over the last several months. It's been a challenging year, but like I said, we're very happy to be here for everyone. So just a few tips this fall to help you have a safe and enjoyable spree. Of course, stay home if you're sick or having any symptoms of COVID-19. Masks are not required in the parks, but we do recommend that folks bring one along just in case there are any circumstances where they can't keep 6 feet of distance from other hikers, like if they're passing on the trail, or the vast majority of our restrooms are open. So if you were like to use a restroom, you might want to have a mask with you. Our drinking fountains do remain off at this time to keep everybody safe. So we encourage you to bring your own water. And then of course, follow the directional signage and let other hikers know when you're passing. So just a quick note on directional signage. This can be a little bit confusing because during, quote unquote normal times, you can hike wherever you want on the trail, whatever direction you want to go, it's totally fine. But right now we are encouraging people to travel in the direction that is intended for the trail. Like all of our trails are actually one way already. And the way that you can tell that is if you look at the trail post marker in this picture, the little icon with if it's a little coyote on there, that icon is only on the front of the post. So if you're traveling down the trail and you see the icon, you're traveling the correct direction. If you see posts with no icon on them, you're going backwards. So we have our one-way travel signs, but sometimes those are easy to miss. So one way to just check yourself as you're on the trail is just keeping an eye out for those icons. And then the last rule is have fun. Get out there, enjoy fall. It's a beautiful season in Ohio. We're so lucky in Summit County, I think, to have such a lovely fall and to have so many places to go out and enjoy it. This is the Fall Hiking Spree is the longest running event of its kind in the entire country. So, you know, we just encourage people to get out there and have fun with your family and friends or on your own and get out there and enjoy fall. So that's all I have. I don't know if there may be any questions. I'd be happy to answer them if there are.
Carrie, did you see any questions?
I do not see any questions, but if there are any, Stephanie will definitely get an answer from you.
That sounds
Thank you
wonderful.
so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. We always appreciate our parks, but especially now with all you're doing to give us a safe place to go during the pandemic, we appreciate you.
Well,
So
thank you.
Awesome. All right, now we're going to talk about our COVID-friendly fall wellness challenge. Go take a hike. There's a lot of hiking that's good for you. It helps lower risk of heart disease. It improves blood pressure and blood sugar, strengthens your core. Here's my favorite though, it boosts your mood. Research shows that hiking has a positive impact on combating stress and anxiety. And right now we can all use a little help with that. Here's a few ways to step up your hiking workout. Start slow. A short hike is best for beginners. This is where, so if you go to the Summit Metro Parks website, they have ratings and they have descriptions on all their trails. So the ratings are 1 through 3, easy, moderate, and strenuous. So you can check it out before you go. You can use poles to include your upper body for a stronger cardio workout. You can head for the hills. Again, go to the Summit Metro Parks website and find the one with steps or with hills in the descriptions. And weigh yourself down, stock your pack with water. You heard Stephanie say that the drinking fountains are not working right now. So weigh yourself down with a little bit of water. You'll boost your calorie burn and strengthen lower back muscles. So here's, we'll go through safety. You guys know we have to talk about safety. We'll talk a little bit more about safety. Stephanie did a nice job. Bring a buddy, especially if you're a beginner or maybe if you're hiking a new trail, make sure you're going with somebody else. Know before you go. So again, you can go online and check out the trail map. You can also check out the trail map right there on site. There's maps when you go to the trailheads. You're going to want to check your weather forecast, make sure it's not going to rain or storm on you, and make sure you have proper footwear. You probably don't need hiking boots, but a good sturdy shoe is helpful. Obviously, you're staying home if you're sick. Stephanie went over the face coverings are not required, but it's hard to keep 6 feet distance, so make sure you've got that mask in your pocket when you go. I want to know who knew trails are one way. I didn't know that. I heard that this year for the first time. Thanks, Stephanie, for pointing all that out to us. But trails are one way, so make sure you're going in the right direction. And again, the drinking fountains are closed. Bring your water, but most restrooms are now open. And here's how we're going to do this challenge. You're going to go to the Summit Metro Parks website, and you're going to sign up and download the form. In addition, Sally's going to send this presentation to you, and she's also going to send a copy of the form to you today after our meeting is over. So you'll have it there also. You're going to complete 8 out of the 12 hikes. Then you're going to scan your form and email it back to Sally, and you've got 2 months to do that. So we're going to remind you at the end of this meeting, we'll remind you in the October meeting, and then November meeting will be the last day you have to turn those forms in. We will have a random drawing of winners, and we'll announce the winners in our December meeting. Feel free, guys, to take this presentation and use it at your workplace if you want for a fall hiking or fall wellness challenge. Also, if you work in Summit County, but you live in Stark County or Portage County, feel free to do their hiking spree, and you can send that form to Sally. That also qualifies. No problem with that. You'll see at the bottom of this screen, the hashtag SMP Spree. Summit Metro Parks would like you to take pictures and hashtag on your favorite social media site. So go ahead and do that. And once again, I want to thank the Summit Metro Parks for being our sponsor today. So we'll harass you guys about this wellness challenge. We'll keep you informed. We'll send you stuff and keep you motivated. And that's all I have for today. I'm going to turn it over to Carrie.
All right. I am so excited to see everybody, even though I can't really see you. I wish I could. I can see a couple of you. I want a big smile from everybody, though, because it does boost your mood. I just have a couple quick updates, and then we're going to get into what you all really came here for, is to learn about our drug-free programs and if everything is now up in smoke. But just a couple quick updates. From the BWC, I am Carrie Gray. I'm your safety consultant, or most of your safety consultant. If I'm not, it could be Nick Koya or Deb Bailey. But we are still here for you, unfortunately, only virtually. We really, really miss you. Trust me, I miss you more than you know. But we are still here, and I get lots of emails and questions and phone calls and Zoom meetings and every other kind of meeting with everybody. If you have questions or you need help with something, let me know. That's what I'm here for, so I'm going to help you. The BWC, most of you have already received face coverings from the BWC. They're sending out another batch of those, so you should get those. They start with the smallest employers and work their way up. So you should be getting those, but more exciting than that is they're looking at another $1 billion back rebate, which would be the 2019 premiums coming back to you. I'm not exactly sure of the timeline, but those should be coming. Just be ready and looking for those. And like I say, every time we do a rebate, please go cash that check. As silly as that sounds, please do that. Saves a lot of work on our end, and everybody needs that right now. A couple other things that we do have going on. We're doing weekly safety webinars. Next week, we actually have the fire marshals on Tuesday. Steve, he's been our speaker. He's actually going to be our speaker next month too. But he's doing a different presentation for the webinar next Tuesday than what he's doing for us. So you can watch both. Trust me, it won't be overkill. He's so good. But he's going to be showing lots of pictures of real fire hazards that they're seeing as the fire marshals out there. And then the following week, Rick Mage is going to be doing one on heat stress and cold stress. So he's even going to do like wardrobe changes and really fun stuff. So you're not going to want to miss that one. That's through the BWC, and you can register for those. Sally send the flyers out for those every month or every week. And then we also have the BWC safety updates that gets put on the BWC website. That's an option. The last thing I wanted to mention is we are starting, and bear with me, but we're starting virtual classes in October. You can see the list of the classes that we're offering. If you're in one of our programs, One Claim program, ISSP, anything like that, and you need credits, here is what is going to be in place of our real in-person classes for the time being. I will tell you, I am doing Lockout Tagout on October 15th. And I'm trying to make it as interactive, and it will be fun because you don't have a choice if you're coming to my class. It will be fun. So you're going to want to definitely check one of these out if you need it for credit. And even if you don't, if you want to learn more about hazard communication or how to write JSAs or developing any of these would be really good. Sally will put this information coming out in the next newsletter as well. So, and you can always send me an email if you have any questions. So what we've all been waiting for, besides our meeting etiquette, and I've been watching, you guys are aces at this, so we don't have to worry about it. Make sure you're on mute, make sure you turn your video off, and put questions in the chat. And Faith will read those to you at the end. So if folks have questions, I'm sure they will on this topic. We'll discuss those questions at the very end. But what we're really excited about is Faith is our speaker today. And I know she was supposed to remind me how to say her last name, and she didn't. So I'm not even going to try to butcher it. So we're just going to say Faith, and we're going to let her introduce with her last name. And she is going to be talking about our drug-free policies and the impact of legalized marijuana. I'll let you say all the hard words here. And I will tell you, I've seen this presentation or similar to this presentation quite a while ago, about a year ago or so, I think.
2 years,
it was
actually.
Phenomenal. 2 years ago? Oh my gosh, where's time going? It was so good, which is why we brought Faith here to us, to the Summit County Safety Council. So with that, since we can't really all clap, you do have a little clap emoji on the bottom. We can give a warm Summit County Safety Council welcome to Faith. And it's all you, Faith.
All right. Well, thank you for having me today virtually here. I know we were supposed to do this back in I think May, so we've been a little delayed, but nothing really has changed much in that time frame. So me pull up my slides here. The title of today's, well, I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. Faith Dulesky, and I'm with Souls Law Offices. So there's the pronunciation of my name. Today's presentation is your drug policy up in smoke? The impact of legalized marijuana on the workplace. Obviously, the use of marijuana by employees is of great concern to employers for multiple reasons. So with the legalization, you know, there's quite a few issues that come up. So we're gonna start by talking about kind of the history of where we've come and how this has come to be, and then we're gonna go through the various areas that it might impact you as an employer. Okay. And I am, okay, there we go. Sorry. Moment there with a possible technical issue here. Okay, medical legalization timeline. This is a little bit of a history. Starting back almost 25 years ago, California was the first state to enact legislation legalizing medical marijuana. Over the years, it was kind of a slow start. For the first 14 years, there were only 5 states that had medical marijuana legalized. But as you can see over the years, it's kind of picked up steam, with 2016 being the tipping point where more states had legalized medical marijuana than not. And that was the year in which Ohio voted to legalize medical marijuana. The implementation and effectiveness didn't take place. It's been almost 2 years exactly. It was September of 2018 when the program was finally rolled out, but it was legalized by legislation in 2016. You can also see by this slide, I don't know if you can tell, there's certain states that are highlighted, and the states that are highlighted, that indicates a state in which they both have medical as well as recreational legalization. So following, you know, it's between generally about a 10 to as long as 20-year time gap after legalization medically. Oftentimes recreational legalization follows. And here's a representation of the states. In 2019, Washington, Michigan, and Illinois were the latest to legalize recreational marijuana. Colorado was the starter there. So a lot of the research that's been done has been looking at Colorado because they were you know, the first. So looking back at what the effect of that has been, generally once recreational legalization is in place, crime rates go up, homelessness goes up. From the standpoint of employers, there's a difficulty in obtaining employees, especially I know Colorado had difficulty in the construction industry, because obviously there is a general need to make sure that you've got a safe workforce, workforce that isn't impaired, and they had a great difficulty finding employees who were able to pass the drug tests when that was first implemented. We're not there yet, but as you can see, you know, the trend is moving in that direction. Also, I think it's illustrative with the COVID-19 lockdowns that took place. California had a shelter-in-place order, but at the same time, they considered their marijuana to be an essential business. So, and that included recreational shops were still open, some of them just for pickup, But when most businesses were closed during the pandemic, you could still get recreational marijuana. So just kind of what we might see as a trend coming. And while I'm not going to address the recreational issue, it's just something to keep on the radar screen, because like I said, between 10 and 20 years between legalization of medical and then legalization of recreational, it's kind of moving in that direction. This slide just shows that, in Colorado, just 5 years after the legalization of the recreational marijuana, there were more marijuana stores than both McDonald's and Starbucks combined. And when you consider how many Starbucks there are, that's a pretty startling statistic. So what does the federal law say about marijuana use medically, since, more than half of the states now authorize medical marijuana use in some form? However, there is a conflict, because under federal law, medical marijuana, or marijuana, is still a Schedule I drug under the Controlled Substances Act. The Department of Transportation, still has their drug and alcohol testing requirements. Obviously, there would be issues with safety concerns for truck drivers, bus drivers, pilots, safety sensitive positions. So they are still required to be subject to the drug testing. Refusing a drug test under the DOT rules is considered a positive drug test. And because of the length of time that it takes for the metabolites to break down, you can still be sober and at the time of a drug test and test positive for marijuana up to 30 days afterwards. And what does a Schedule I drug mean? It means a drug that currently has no accepted medical use and has a high potential for abuse. Some other drugs in this same category would be heroin, LSD, and ecstasy. So obviously, under federal law, it's viewed much differently than in many of the states. So that's how the federal law views it. So with the Americans with Disabilities Act, under the federal structure, since the ADA is a federal statute, the ADA is not violated by drug testing policies or an adverse employment action for someone who tested positive or violated the drug policy. Even in the states in which medical marijuana is legal, and even in the states, and even if the person, has a card indicating that they are authorized to use medical marijuana. So there's no need to accommodate for disabilities under the ADA. That being said, you still have to be cognizant of the state laws. In Ohio, the statute specifically protects employers. However, be aware if your company does business in other states that other state disability laws may differ. When medical marijuana first became legal, a lot of the courts were reticent to accord protections for employees, and most ruled that there was no duty to accommodate. However, as the tides change and the trends are changing and things are trending toward medical marijuana and marijuana in general being more acceptable, that is changing. So there's a Massachusetts case, Barboot versus Advantage Sales and Marketing LLC. And in that case, an employer was held to be required to accommodate their employee who had Crohn's disease and had found no relief using other prescriptions that were standard legalized prescriptions. However, they were able to find relief with medical marijuana, and the Massachusetts High Court said that the employer had a duty to accommodate. So, you know, in Massachusetts, that you do have to watch. Other states with employee protections: Arizona, Arkansas, Connecticut, Delaware, Illinois, Maine, Minnesota, New York, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. And in those states, they have specifically included, opposite of Ohio, they have included in their medical marijuana legislation that there are employee protections and employees must be accommodated in some form or another. So what does the Ohio Revised Code state? As I mentioned, they do indicate that there is no need to accommodate for purposes of disability and state disability laws. They set out 3 agencies that are to oversee the implementation and rollout and just general oversight of the marijuana, medical marijuana business in Ohio. The Department of Commerce oversees the cultivators, the processors, and the laboratories. The State Board of Pharmacy, they oversee the dispensaries, and they register the patients and caregivers so that there is a log of who is legally able to be in possession of medical marijuana for purposes of, you know, criminal prosecutions. And then the State Medical Board oversees the physician requirements and the procedures for applying to be able to have a certificate to be able to recommend medical marijuana. There are currently 21 qualifying medical conditions listed under the statute, you know, ranging from, you know, you see Alzheimer's, cancer, glaucoma, fibromyalgia, hepatitis, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, I mean, a whole list of things here. And then there's kind of a catch-all provision at the end of the statute. So this list is not necessarily exhaustive because the statute does give the State Medical Board the authority to expand it by adding any other diseases or conditions that they find fitting. And who can get it? Only those people who have a qualifying medical condition, and it must be recommended by a certified doctor who has the certificate. The forms of medical marijuana, it is prohibited in combustible form. So someone who is smoking marijuana cigarette is not someone who would be covered under the medical marijuana law. Other forms, however, there still are some limitations to this. For instance, the edibles, you cannot have a form or a method that would be considered attractive to children. So no gummies, no candy, no brownies, not packaged in, you know, packaging that looks attractive to children. Kind of along the same lines of prescription medication. You don't want this to entice children to try it or to be attractive to children. So employer concerns. I think it goes without saying workplace safety is a paramount issue. You don't want a worker to be impaired because in that case, they're a danger to both themselves and others. They also, under insurance claims, We're talking about property damage here. So if you have someone impaired and they're operating a forklift and they just drop, you know, expensive merchandise or equipment, you know, or otherwise damage a vehicle, you know, you've got potential liability there. You also have potential liability with workers' compensation claims with impaired individuals, and not just the workers' comp claims, but even potentially intentional tort claims. You also have concerns with employer productivity. I know that the research that had been done and studies that had shown coming out of the states that had legalized, especially the recreational marijuana, you know, workers who are under the influence or who partake of marijuana frequently, or are addicted to drugs or alcohol, they have a lower output as far as productivity. There are usually morale issues within the employment setting, higher absenteeism, tardiness, and just a greater employee turnover. So those are all concerns that I'm sure most employers have dealt with when thinking about this relatively new legislation. So what are the rights and protections of employers under the new law? The new law is, it's all codified again in chapter 3796 of the Ohio Revised Code. And the code is pretty specific in what protections the employers have. Employers are not required to accommodate an employee's use, possession, or distribution of medical marijuana. This language is straight from the statute, and again, it is in line with the federal ADA and counter to those states that you know, that hold that there is a requirement to accommodate. At this early stage, additionally, accommodation would be difficult. In part due to the lack of side effects that from medical marijuana, because, you know, the form in which it's taking, the potency, you know, the whether it contains the THC or the CBD or a combination of both, again, it would be really difficult to gauge how one could be accommodated, because if the accommodation would involve something that had THC, again, you know, you're looking at an impairment potentially while the employee is working. And like I said, other states are definitely different, but this is just Ohio's statute. Another right of the employer is an employer is free to refuse to hire or to discharge, discipline, or otherwise take an adverse employment action against a person because of that person's use, possession, or distribution of medical marijuana. I would advise that any such position be taken in accordance with drug-free workplace policy, which we'll talk about. But again, this language is directly in the statute. So that is another protection for employers. And again, out of the statute explicitly, an employer can still establish and enforce a drug testing policy, a drug-free workplace policy, Carrie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I hear you now. For some reason, you got muted.
Okay, I'm sorry. How long? Okay, where did I?
Just now. Right
Okay.
Here. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't
happened.
know. I don't know what happened either. I was like, wait a minute, what happened?
Okay.
Okay,
Yep,
so
you're good. I'm here.
All right. So rights of the employers. You know, you can still establish a drug-free workplace policy, and that is highly recommended. And I am not sure
Try
what
the,
it's.
there you go. You got it.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure what was happening there. Oh, the joys of technology during COVID here.
You're doing
Okay.
great.
Another specific portion of the statute is that the code states that it does not create an adverse or a right of an adverse action or right of the employee for an action against the employer for any adverse employment action, failure to hire, failure to accommodate. And how this affects the interplay with the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. Pretty much because of the way the statute is set forth, it's still going to be pretty much the same. The Bureau of Workers' Compensation is still authorized to give rebates to employers who participate in the drug-free workplace program. There is still the requirement of the 5-panel drug test protocol, which includes marijuana. The rebuttable presumption that an employee was, that intoxication was the cause of injury if an employee tests positive post-accident is still in play. And as I mentioned previously, medical marijuana, it's not a prescription, it's only a recommendation. So here's where it's kind of a distinction with a difference because it is not a covered prescription under workers' compensation. Additionally, in order to be a covered prescription, it would have to be an FDA approved drug, and with it having still been a Schedule I drug, that is not the case. Unemployment benefits. If an employer has adopted and implemented a drug-free workplace policy, a zero tolerance policy, or a policy regulating the use of medical marijuana, and a person is discharged pursuant to such policy, the discharge is for just cause. The language of the statute specifically states medical marijuana. So while most policies have language to the effect, a lot of them say something like the presence of any illegal drug, illegal controlled substance, or alcohol on the premises or while performing company business is prohibited. I would recommend that any policy like that that's kind of broad and refers to illegal substance, even though it is still illegal under federal, I think there could be some question under the state law. So I would amend those policies to make sure it specifically states medical marijuana. So that leads us to the drug-free workplace policy, which is what we would highly recommend. There are a lot of protections that you're going to have as an employer if you implement this. Again, you've got the Bureau of Workers' Compensation rebates. If your policy is in accordance with them, you've got protections for unemployment. If you have a written drug policy, you have the protections if someone is terminated pursuant to your policy, you have something that you can rely on to show that they were terminated for violating that policy, even if they are covered with a medical marijuana recommendation. So the components that we would recommend for a drug-free workplace policy and which need to be implemented for the Bureau of Workers' Compensation rebates, it has to be written. The reasons, well, it has to be written. There needs to be training. The employees need to be educated on it. The employees need to have some form of assistance, and then there actually needs to be the drug testing component. So why is it important that it is written? You want to make sure that everyone knows what is expected and what is prohibited. You don't want an employee to claim that they were unaware. They also need to be clearly apprised of what the consequences are for a violation. And you want to make sure that your policy is being, excuse me, evenly applied to all employees. So in order for that to happen, it really needs to be written so that everybody is consulting the same set of rules. Also, you know, regulatory requirements, again, for purposes of the Bureau of Workers' Compensation, rebates, for purposes of unemployment, in order to show that, hey, you have violated a company policy, it needs to be documented. Supervisor training. Supervisors, you know, they need to be intimately familiar with what the policy is, and they need to be trained on what their role is, because supervisors are going to be the kind of the person in the gap to be able to, you know, observe employees who might be suspected of having a drug or alcohol problem, and they will be the ones documenting the poor job performance. They're going to have to follow the company procedures to uniformly address performance issues, and ensure that things are consistently and fairly and non-discriminatorily applied across the board. And then the supervisors need to know how to refer an employee suspected of having a problem to those qualified to diagnose or offer assistance, so that the employees can get the assistance that they need if necessary. Employee education, again, employees should be given a copy of the policy. And we recommend that employees sign an acknowledgement as having received it and having received the training in it, and that the training actually take place. You know, there needs to be an overview of the importance of the policy and the dangers and effects of substance abuse, and why this is important in the workplace because of the effect on the workplace. The employees also need to know the consequences of violating the policy and make sure that that is clearly articulated, especially for purposes of unemployment compensation. Employee assistance. At a minimum, there should be a list of local resources or treatment options or helpline numbers. You know, an employer doesn't have to go beyond that, but you know, there should at least be some guidance as where employees can go themselves for help. Also, it has to be confidential. Again, just like any other private employee information and HIPAA related information, who might need assistance, and you know, what issues they are dealing with, or problems that they're having, that needs to be you know, kept in a locked file. Drug testing, you know, you're going to have to determine, you know, who in the company will be tested. Is it going to be everyone? Is it only going to be people who are driving? Is it only going to be people, you know, for instance, in a manufacturing setting, who are in safety sensitive positions? What, you know, what kind of test is going to be applied? When is it going to be, you know, pre-hire? Is it going to be post-accident? Is it going to be random? Is it going to be, you know, everyone? And then how, just the procedures and who is performing it. So all of that needs to be set forth. And that's pretty much what I've got. So I open it up for questions.
I do have some questions.
Okay.
The first was, how often do supervisors and employees need to be trained? I know from the BWC drug-free standpoint, they would have to be trained every year if you're in our program.
And that would be our recommendation is, you know, to follow the BWC requirements because, you know, at a minimum, anybody who's coming in new to the company needs to be trained, and then to have that annual training as well. So.
Awesome. Okay. I received a question when you were talking about folks.
Oh, I'm losing you, Carrie. Your microphone's breaking up.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Is that better? Okay. My phone has to sit on the right side of my desk. I have no idea why, but now we're on the right side, so we should be good. The other question that I received of there is a medical review required to obtain a medical marijuana card in Ohio. And if an employee has to have that card, can we assume they have a legitimate medical diagnosis if they were to test positive or have it?
You know, as far as what the standards are for a physician issuing a recommendation, I'm not really sure. But you know, I would caution employers on accommodating, because when you do, you kind of open up that door. So you do have the protections in, you know, in the statute that you don't have to. So even if they have a card, you're not required to, and especially if you have the BWC program or a drug-free workplace policy, you know, opening that door, you could have issues. So, you know, presumably under the program, if someone is issued a card, you know, there's supposed to be these, you know, provisions in place where only certified doctors can recommend. But as far as any safeguards of whether these are valid, you know, I'm not sure. And also, again, as a recommendation to an employer, I would caution any accommodation, because again, you know, you've got to apply it evenly, and then you're kind of opening up the floodgates.
Absolutely. Okay. I did have someone ask if they could have a copy of the presentation. Is that something you're willing to share with our council?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll figure that out later.
Yeah, we can figure out
Awesome.
how to get that over. So.
Cool. And the last one that I had, and then I'll see if Sally has any. I had someone ask if there are tests available, or is there levels set that indicate impairment for marijuana?
You know, it is so tricky. And honestly, as far as I'm not sure how some of the states are doing it, because I know we've had issues with just, you know, there is a level I know for impairment, for instance, driving a motor vehicle. And I think aren't there, as far as BWC, for just this is the standard level which we consider impaired. But I don't know if that is technically what is impaired. You know what I mean? Because I know we had a case where someone had been a habitual user for 30 some years, and you know, their levels were pretty high, and allegedly they said they hadn't smoked it since Sunday, and this was like Wednesday, but they were off the charts. So you know, I'm not sure where the state of tests are, just because of the length of time that it takes for the THC to metabolize. And I don't know, Carrie, if you are aware of anything different.
No, and that's what I've heard as well, is you know, there's a level that shows up. Is it in your bloodstream or not? I mean, obviously there's a level of which you could be below that and it would say it's a negative, even though there may be a tiny bit, but there's that level of, okay, is it positive? Is it a positive drug test? But when it comes to level of impairment, everything I've heard, you know, really we're back to the drawing board of the old fashioned sobriety test that you saw folks do on the side of the road, you know, because somebody's level may be drastically different from somebody else's depending on their usage, their body chemistry, their makeup. There's a whole lot to it. That's what I've come across too. So, yep. Those are the questions I had. If anybody has any other questions, I do have a comment that under the banner of safety, we have, this is an employer, has issued an addendum to our policy that medical use is not allowed even in their drug-free policy. So, you know, it looks like employers are, even though it's considered legal in Ohio, it's not federal legal, but folks are adding to their drug-free policies to make sure that, you know, it doesn't like create a loophole in their written policy. So they're saying medical marijuana is still not allowed within their company. So that's, I don't know if that's something, I think you kind of addressed
Yeah,
that.
and
But if you wanted to add anything
that
to
is
that.
exactly what we would recommend, that you call out that medical marijuana is still a violation, even if you're, you know, a card carrying, you know, you've got your recommendation for medical marijuana from a certified physician in Ohio, that still does not comply with the drug-free workplace policy. Just because, like I said, even if you have that language that you've always had that said, you know, illegal substances, you know, under Ohio law, there's that question, you know, for legality, because, you know, it technically isn't if you are. So just including that medical marijuana language, I think is important. So yeah, that was the right thing to do, I would say.
Good. Sally, have you gotten any questions?
No, I don't see any more questions in the queue.
Okay.
I think we're ready to close if Faith doesn't have any additional comments.
I think that's it. I thank everyone again for tuning in virtually here, and I'll be happy to share that, Carrie, if you want to be able, you